The anticipation was getting to me, so I went live. Oh, and here she is, the woman of the hour, everyone, Chrissie Mayr.
Hello, Ian.
Hey, Chrissie.
Hi. Let me check my audio really quick. Okay, everything is good. Everything is
Yeah, you
I'm
sound good there.
I sound good. I feel good.
You look great.
Oh, stop.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It feels really surreal still, even though I see the pictures and I hear a heartbeat. I don't know. I don't know if this happens to everyone. Like sometimes I just go, is there a person in there or is this just a result of eating bread again?
Maybe both.
Yeah, maybe it's both.
So, do you start eating bread after you got pregnant?
Yeah, because I was basically on a modified, messy keto slash carnivore for basically 2 years leading up to getting married because I was, like, doing the classic girl thing of wanting to fit into their wedding dress. So, I was just, like, working out a ton and having no bread, no sugar, no fruit, and, so now I don't know, I guess I could be a little bit more hardcore about my diet, but I'm just kind of, like, eating a little bit of everything now.
Do you make your own bread?
No, but I should.
Dude, get a good bread maker.
Ooh.
It is so good because a lot of the problems with bread are the potassium bromate. It's a preservative that comes in American bread. Unfortunately, it's not all of it, but some of it.
Oh.
And glyphosate. As far as I can tell, they spray the wheat with it before they harvest it. They use it to dry out the wheat, so it's like not even. It's an insecticide, pesticide, as far as I know. But they'll also use it just to dry it out for harvest, which is like, you know,
That makes sense. I always get like, when we'll buy, like, a fresh Italian bread or something, it definitely goes bad within a couple of days, but that's how it should be.
yeah.
Like, growing up, we'd always have a loaf of something on the counter, and it would be fine for weeks. It would just sit there.
Yeah, and it stays in your body. I imagine if it's preserves on the shelf for 2 weeks, what it does inside of you.
It's so scary, the stuff that you have to think about, like, I reassessed the cosmetics I was using and, shower products, and then you're like, "Damn, why wasn't I doing this the whole time? Because there really are decent substitutes.
What got you into the whole health kick?
Well, if I dial it way back, my mom growing up was always into it. Like she would take me and my sister to our local health food store out on Long Island, like just as a fun thing to do together. And we'd all get like green juices and we would talk to this. God, I wonder if she's still alive. This lady who worked, I think her name was Janet. She worked at this health food store and she would do this thing where she would have us like have a watch on and not have a watch on and she'd have us hold our arms out like this. And like if you wore a watch on your left hand, right? And you'd have your arms out like this, and she could easily push your arms down. And then she would say, okay, take off your watch. And then she wasn't able to push her arms down, and I was like, "Oh, there's really something to this. It's not all just, like, uh, hokey, kind of new agey," which I do have the tendency to be interested in that stuff, like, astrology, crystals, etcetera. But that was a moment, I think, in my teenage years where I was like, "Oh, okay. There really are things you can do to affect your health and your strength." And, then we had a little bit of a moment where we were on, like, every diet together, my mom and I. We did Atkins together, we did the Master Cleanse together, South Beach. I love talking about this diet that my mom was on called the balls diet, where she just put 2 sterling silver balls, taped them behind each ear on a pressure point, and every time she was hungry, she would rub her balls and then just have a little yogurt or a frozen yogurt, and that would be kind of like all she would eat, really. And it's like, yeah, you would lose weight, but it's an interesting part of it because it taps into like the acupressure aspect of weight loss and how much of us are really like she was definitely a person who was an emotional eater for sure.
Uh, uh,
But she also didn't have, like, a very healthy like, she wasn't exercising really, but she just loved the fad diets, and I was right along with her.
I noticed it's anecdotal, but if I ever get a food craving and I'm like, oh, I don't want to eat that thing, but I'm getting the craving, I'll go over to like the sink and I'll get the salty saliva. You know, right before you're about to eat the food, your body thinks it's about to eat it. You like get all this salty saliva in your mouth, like ready. and I just spit that salty saliva out, and then the craving goes away. And
That's so German of you.
yeah, I got German in me. Olga was my grandmother. August, her father. August Klein. My theory is what's happening is a lot of the bacteria that kind of mind controls you, that lives in your gut. It's like, so you eat a piece of something with all this bacteria on it that goes into your stomach. That bacteria is in there. It's like, I want more of that thing that I eat. And then it tells your body, and then you think, I want that food, like, or you go for it, like, but the reality is it's some organism controlling you. So I think that the bacteria that comes up into the
Ooh.
mouth, that salty stuff, is like first dibs on the food, and you expel it. It's happened over and over and over, like multiple. I've killed
Wow.
cravings.
It's always fun to kind of grapple with the caveman part of yourself, and, like, the inner child version of yourself too. Like, I think, like, I have a huge procrastination problem, and I really think I've been reading more and more about it, that it's actually, like, an emotional regulation thing in your brain, not a laziness thing, not like, uh well, I always come back to, like, well, I'm just lazy, I can't prioritize, but it has something to do with, like, you're delaying a negative, emotional outcome. And same thing, I think, with cravings too. I've been saying a lot, I'm blowing the whistle on pregnancy cravings because I really haven't been having very many. And I think if you are having a craving, I think that just speaks to something that's lacking in your overall diet or nutrition or your supplements. Like, oh, I really want chocolate. It's like, well, you probably don't have enough iron. Or like, oh, I really want fried chicken. It's like you probably need salt. You Most cases you just are not getting enough protein. They say like when you're pregnant, you're supposed to be eating 100 grams of protein a day, and I doubt most people are getting that.
Where are you getting your protein from?
You know. No.
Oh, wise
Just
move.
kidding. Just kidding. Like,
Recycling.
I love eggs, hard-boiled, scrambled. You can't have, like, runny eggs. That's another thing you can't eat when you're pregnant is, like, no sunny side up, no, like, no basically, like, runny eggs, no over easy. But I'm eating a ton of chicken, obviously, um, yogurt. When I was trying to lose weight, I was eating just like this low to no carb, no sugar, high protein yogurt, and I've switched to this other kind of Greek yogurt, but like definitely steak, although I'm not eating as much steak and red meat as I was when I was doing like the messy keto carnivore. Nuts for sure. I'm eating more things like chickpeas and lentils.
Oh, those are
And I'm
good.
and I'm gonna be eating more fish, like, especially in the 3rd trimester, that's when a lot of the brain building happens. Like, I already take a DHA, which is like a fish oil or, like, essential fatty acid type extra gummy supplement that's specifically for brain building, but, like, eating a lot of fish is good in the last third 'cause, just from what I've read. I'm just gonna try to make him smarter than me. He's
That's
already
good.
taking 95% of my brain power, Ian, and I had
Whoa.
I had baby brain before I got pregnant, and
It,
it's like I'm fighting for the last 2% of my own brain.
that's that's where it gets the most wind resistance, is like the higher top speed you go, but it's worth it. How do you know it's a guy?
It's a boy because we found out at 12 weeks because, if you're a geriatric pregnancy, you do blood tests at 12 weeks that look for risk of Down syndrome and other genetic issues, and then they you can opt to not get the gender, but they can also just they'll know because if they look in your blood and they see, what is it? Any God, I just forgot. What women have what, 2 X chromosomes or XY?
Yeah, two X chromosomes.
Right, so if they see any Y chromosome in my blood, then they know that it's a
Oh,
boy.
oh,
Whereas if they test your blood and it's the same blood as you, they're like, "Oh, well, you probably are having a girl."
but it's
But they
still
know
probably, it could still be a guy.
for sure it's a boy if you have any Y at all. So that was the case with me, and so I knew at 12 weeks, and I'm looking at all these not that I had a big insane gender reveal thing, but we took a little video, we did, like, a little thing at home, where actually, like, my stepson and my husband's mom, they knew, they had the answer, and they went to a party city, and they bought, like, a box, and they were gonna fill it with balloons, and they're like, "Okay, open the box." And there was nothing in the box. I was like, "Well, this isn't good." And then they, like, called the dogs over, and the dogs had blue balloons on them, and I was like, "Oh," it was, like, such a nice surprise. It's, like, the only time in your life other people know what's going on in your own in your own body, I guess, like rather than yourself.
Why
So
was that?
I don't know.
They got access to the paperwork before you
Yeah,
did? Oh,
I
yeah.
we gave them the envelope.
Dude,
So
I am oh, what's that?
I could have been convinced to wait till the very end. Like I was even debating like what would be the benefits of not telling anyone? Like just waiting as long as possible and just letting people think I'm throwing in the towel physically. Cause once you let people know, you start like, yeah, you get a lot of positive comments, but you get a lot of negative comments. Like people like, "I hope your baby's retarded. I hope it has problems." And I'm like, "Well, actually, that's not an insult because retarded kids are the most happy. So you're actually, wishing something positive
A
on
lot
me."
of those
But
a lot of that
yeah.
feedback could be bots too. I don't even know these days. I'm
Yeah,
just like, if
that's
it's a
true.
negative comment, it's fake. It's a bot. I just trick myself.
That's true.
I mean,
But
not really, but I'm trying to.
I felt like ultimately it's I'm on stage a lot. It's not like if I were just doing podcasts, I could totally hide it,
Oh, when
but
they scream it
I'm on
out.
I'm on stage and,
You're like, "You're a bot."
yeah, you're a bot. You're a bot in real life. Um, so when I was looking at these gender reveal videos, I was like, wow, all these women are so much more pregnant looking. And it's because uh most women find out at 20 weeks, which is when you really start to look like something's happening.
I see.
And I
Did
was
you
only
find
at 12.
I imagine that working out like you did for what it was like 2 years? Was it leading up to? Must have made it so easy to get or much easier to get pregnant, to stay
I
pregnant, to be pregnant?
wonder because it's like it's a funny thing to talk about, but I didn't think it would happen so quickly and so easily. I think from everything I've read and I guess sort of our culture, you feel like, well, if you're over a certain age, it's gonna take a real miracle for something to happen. It's gotta be a lot of planning, a lot of measuring your temperature, a lot of like obsessing over an app and a schedule. And like, we have to have sex every day. I gotta point myself due east with my legs in the air for an hour. And I was like really pleasantly surprised that it just happened. Is really cool. And I feel like that's definitely like was a God moment. Like I just really feel like this person really wants to be born because I feel like we were so careful. And just my whole life, like I was on birth control for a year when I was 22. It made me feel insane. I got off of it right. I think I was on it less than a year. And then I've just been watching it ever since, and just like you learn about your cycle. There's only really 4 or 5 days that you can get pregnant. I think it's worth it to track that rather than to make yourself nuts on hormonal birth control. And sometimes if women who have been on it for years or they've had an IUD in them for 10, 15 plus years, it takes months and months for your body to kind of like recalibrate and get pregnant, which is not really something they warn women about. So that's
An IUD?
yeah.
What is that? That actually, what is it exactly? I've never
Sometimes
looked
I
into it.
say IED, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's a copper. They have hormonal and I think non-hormonal versions of it, but it's basically like a copper, like little thing that they shove up into your cervix. It literally like pokes holes through your parts and like hangs on like two Christmas ornaments together. And every person I know who's had one of these installed say it's super painful and it just seems kind of scary and like a barbaric thing to do.
Like the installation, I imagine is painful, but they say just having it there also,
You
or
just have it in there for like 10 years.
is that
And then
painful?
I guess not. I guess just putting
Oh,
it in and taking it out is painful. And
yeah, the
it wasn't
piercing.
yeah, it wasn't like it's become popular, I think. It wasn't as popular when I was, like, a teenager because not that many girls were getting it, but I'm hearing about it more in the last, like, 10, 15 years, like,
What
a
was
lot
what
of
was
people
the
are getting them.
what's the difference between being on birth control and then getting off?
Oh, and well, so long ago for me, but birth control actually tricks your body into thinking it's already pregnant, which is why you don't have a period. It's well, some birth control, you can get the seasonal ones where you just don't ever have a period, which, that can't be good for you. But with birth control, it's like for most of the month, your body thinks it's pregnant, and then you take your placebo pills, and then that's when you get your period, and people say, "Oh, you gotta do this. This regulates your this is the only way to be regular. Oh, it clears up your skin." They really sell it to you like if you have acne, "Oh, you gotta get on birth control." They also sell it to you if you have ovarian cysts, "Oh, you gotta get on birth control. That's the only way to clear them up." And I have read studies that being on birth control actually affects the type of men that you choose, because wherever you are in your cycle, like however your hormones are, they say if you're more fertile or you're at the more closer to ovulation, you are more likely to pick a guy or want to like have sex with a guy who has maybe more protective, like alpha qualities. I'm really just saying this in the most basic way possible. But when you're on birth control, they've done studies that show that men actually like they're picking maybe more men with like beta. They're maybe more like softer type dudes.
Oh,
And then when there's been reports of women who come off birth control and they're all of a sudden like repulsed or like not as into their man because their body chemistry has changed so much. But
I,
again, like you can probably find that it doesn't apply to everybody, but I think it's such a fascinating thing,
I
such
wonder.
a fascinating effect.
Yeah, I wonder if that's because the birth control makes your body think it's pregnant, so it goes into like looking for resources mode, and it's like, hey, nerdy rich guy over there can give me the resources, but you're not actually pregnant. Then when you come off the birth control, you're like, oh my god, I got to get pregnant. I need the strongest alpha man to give me the strongest alpha child. Then I can find the nerdy dude later to pay for
Kind
it.
of, or like, yeah, oh, like the only thing that matters is that you talk to me about my feelings, and then, oh, but you're the first person to run away if someone looks like they're gonna push me into the subway, kind of a thing. It's really bad. Not that you can't be a sensitive man who is also like alpha and strong and a go-getter. There's definitely not like one or the other,
It
but
should be. That should be what dudes are.
but it's really cool to see that, wow, like br generations of women on birth control, it's had a real life effect on who they choose to mate up with.
Dude, in the 50s, we started just experimenting on humans. I mean, radio is definitely, you can see what Hitler did with it, and like what the ability to like transform the populace with radio, and then like the chemicals and all the particularly birth control, but like the drugs, the LSD, the weed,
Wow.
and then the video, and being able to watch ourselves, how that transforms us
Yeah.
for better or worse. But it's just things are moving way faster. I don't know. I think it's better, but I don't have any reference.
Right, it has to be our problems are more complicated. You wanna say every generation is moving into some kind of a net good overall, or maybe it's better in some ways, but maybe we're more socially awkward, we're more disconnected. We really have to work harder to say, like, find a good boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. Like, yeah, social media might help out certain type of person in connecting with potential significant other, but it may hurt other types of people. It allows for more catfishing. You know, all the filtering might help out a certain type of woman, but does it really, is it negative in the long term? I always like thinking about like which generation had it worse or harder, or I think it's just fun for me to keep coming back to boomers like, man, they really had it so easy. But I guess a lot of the women were on pills too and still are.
Oh yeah, Quaaludes. Those were kind
Yeah.
of popular back then. They did have Vietnam, which blew ass as far as I can tell.
Yeah, my dad was in Vietnam. They sent him to Germany, I think just because he was German and spoke some German, and it seemed, I don't know, like he had a either he never talked about it or he had a pretty chill time. I don't really know. Like,
What
he
what
never talked about what he
what's it?
saw.
Was he in the Navy?
He
What
was
branch was
I
he
think
in?
he was he Air Force or just regular? Not a Marine, not Navy. Could have been like Air Force or the other thing.
Army,
God, Army, I think so. I think he
Army or
was
Air Force.
regular Army. Yeah.
My dad was in the Navy. They sent him on what they called peacekeeping missions. He's be on like an aircraft carrier or some boat. I don't know what it was. And then he went to like South America. He was in Germany also for a little while.
Well,
Never went into the jungle, but good Lord, he had family that did. And that's like, Like we got it rough. You could say like kids today, they got it rough having 80 million women to choose from and none want to talk to them. But like, welcome to the jungle. Like that generation, good Lord, to have to, even if it was for like 6 weeks in the jungle of like dudes popping out of the trees and shooting at you at 4 a.m, or you hear a branch snap and everyone just lights it. Like, God.
Yeah. And all the undiagnosed PTSD and issues that veterans still deal with and like probably feel like they can't talk to anybody about. They just got to suck it up because that's what being a dude is all about.
Yeah, in a way, I remember my grandpa got back from World War II and immediately married my grandmother, like proposed to her immediately within like, and got her
Oh,
pregnant like right away. Like there's, once you face that hell, you realize what is the point of wasting time in my civilian life? I just take what's available. I don't know if he was happier after having served in the military, but like he was in a tank and like was a tank sergeant. So there was just like no shit blowing up, noise, the smell, like my dad said he barely ever talked about it, but like running their own
wow.
mower on accident, like horror in the desert. And it was in the desert in North Africa, so it was super hot. But at the same time, like waste note, I guess you realize when your life's on the line, like why am I not married? Why do I not have kids?
I was just this morning talking about this Dink phenomenon, the dual income, no kid thing, which is not new. It's been around forever, but much like feminism, it's kind of being popularized now. And of course, it's like a TikTok trend. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. There's this one couple that went viral this week. They're 21 and they're like, oh, we're dinks. I'm like, no, you're not dinks yet. You're 21. You're still kids. Like, yeah, they live in Utah. They just got married, but I'm like, I don't think you really qualify for dinkhood unless you're over 30, just because of how many people are getting married and having kids later in life. And then you read, with the World Economic, there's so much evidence to support, like it's good for the environment, climate change. Oh, there's 10 scientific reasons why you shouldn't have kids, lower your carbon footprint. And then you look at the real breakdown of reasons why people aren't having kids, and what was it? It was 53% of it, "Oh, I just don't want to." But I think that's a cope. I think there's so much fear being pushed into Gen Z and certainly like the millennials being like, "No, you're where you're at now, and guess what? You can't afford a house, so you should probably kiss marriage and kids goodbye and just, focus on having a nice trip." I think it's this "I don't want to" is an umbrella term for you don't wanna say people don't wanna say they're afraid. People don't wanna say, "Oh god, am I getting too old?" People don't wanna say, "I don't think I make enough money." People don't wanna say, like, "I'm having a really hard time meeting somebody good," or "I'm afraid of being me too." So I think people just go, "Oh, yeah, this is my choice. This is, I want this." Which is fine. There's always gonna be a certain percentage of people who truly don't wanna have kids and probably shouldn't, but it's interesting to see just I think there's a lot of, like, anti-family, anti-kid propaganda.
Yeah, and how many people can be swayed? Like, what percentage of the population's on the fence and like they're gonna do whatever society suggests they do? What does it
Right.
mean? Dink something, no
Dual
kid,
income, no
dual
kid.
income,
Then there's also Dink Wad, which is dual income, no kid with a dog, which is funny to me.
dinkwad, and
Yeah.
people are like self-classifying as dinkwads.
Yes.
What the fuck? Now that's a problem on its own, even if it didn't mean anything. If someone was like, "I'm a dinkwad," I'd be
Yeah.
like, "You got
"Oh,
problems, dude."
I'm a dinkwad. I don't need kids," but then they show their dog, like, dressed up for Halloween and, like, taking him trick or treating, like, treating their dog basically like a kid. And it's fine if you don't wanna have kids. It makes me sad when I feel like people who normally would have tried to go for it get, like, intimidated and talked out of it, by the trends.
Yeah, do you feel more matronly now that you're pregnant?
I feel fatter, and the internet lets me know every day. I just, I every day I wake up, I play my favorite game. I
What?
say, "Do these pants fit?" And the answer is no.
Oh, did you buy new, like, maternity
Yeah,
pants? Is that
I did a show in Tampa where I wore on Sunday where I wore these maternity jeans, and I wish I was wearing a pair right now, but it's basically jeans with a big okay, I'm just doing this to my regular yoga pants, but it's jeans with like a big old flap, and all these flaps come up basically over your boobs, like it's a huge flap. It's the weirdest thing, and then it kind
Oh,
of the pants are funny, and there aren't enough cute maternity clothes. I think your options are look like a sack of potatoes or a formless blob.
Wow. So there's a market.
I think so. I think there's an
That'd be funny
opportunity
to.
for somebody, not that I need to look slutty, but I think there needs to be some cuter options.
Do you think that it's like bad for society if women dress slutty, like moms dress slutty with their in baby photos and stuff? I see pictures of like,
Ooh, it depends. It totally depends. Like it depends. Like what you can get away with. Like you can see intent through a photo. We always see a photo of someone, guy or girl, who go, oh, they look like they're trying too hard. Sometimes a girl with bigger boobs can look sluttier, but be showing less cleavage than a girl who has smaller boobs, but like more is showing. It's just about like style and intent. And I think if I think you can look sexy and good, but you don't want to look like you're trying too hard. And that is different for everybody.
that's a good observation that a curvier body might look sluttier, even more clothed than a scantily clad skinny girl, like with that flattened girl. It's not
You
that
can get
extreme,
away
but
you can get away with more if you're kinda lean. Yeah,
whoa,
not so curvy.
that's weird, but that's
Mhm.
true. I hadn't thought about that before. Yo, two things. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna answer your question, like, do I feel more yes and no, like, my 12-year-old stepson has been in my life for 9 years, so there's always been a kid and, like, as part of the equation, like, somebody else to look out for. It's always been part of our dynamic that's not just, like, us, which is, I think, a good thing. It was early on in dating, like, very humbling for me because it was this, like I had to go through this journey of, "Oh, do I feel ignored? Do I oh, it's not always about me." And then you realize, "No, no, no, like, this this kid was, like, not put on this earth to make you feel ignored in your dating life," like, and you become, like, kind of wiser about it, and you kinda zoom out, like, "No, you're in this kid's life to bring your best qualities. You're basically helping to raise and be a positive influence on this person," and then you kind of, like, grow up in a way.
So you originally got like the wave of like my boyfriend who we hang out is paying attention to that other person instead of me, but you had to overcome.
You have to get over yourself a little bit, and I think it was good for me because I'm a youngest of 3 kids and a stand-up comedian, so it's like I didn't like, I'm someone who probably needed a lot of attention and didn't get it or else I wouldn't have been doing stand-up, um, so it was a nice, very necessary sort of, like, humbling process for me, and I've always been very, like, protective over him, and I've always, like, cared about other people's kids, but I never felt like, "Oh, the clock is ticking, I'd never felt that way. I said, "If it happens, like, great. If it doesn't, I'm sure that's meant to be too."
That's what I feel like is stress is like the biggest detractor of getting pregnant. Like the whole if a woman gets too old, she can't have babies thing is just terrifying to me. Like I feel like it makes so many women scared and stressed and then their bodies have a harder time. But like in reality, age and time are kind of these weird concepts. Like time is motion. So like solar age, how many times you've been around the sun is not necessarily correlated to your genetics or your genetic age. Like your genetics could be aging drastically if you're eating poison. You could have gray hair and like balding at like 28, aged skin from all the horror that you put your body through. Or you could have gone around the sun 60 times and have the genetic age of a 38-year-old with like the right therapies, NMN and metformin and intermittent fasting and stuff. So
Yeah.
I love that the stories of women in their like mid 40s that have kids that are like fully healthy and the babies are awesome. Like
Yeah.
not only modern medicine, but just stress in general. I want to
From
undo
what
the
I'm
what's
from
it?
what I'm reading, God, and there's, like, a book that I'm recommending to everybody. I think it's called Expecting Better. In the first couple of chapters, it breaks down, like, how female fertility changes with age, and it's such a good antidote to this red pill, wall-hitting rhetoric that we hear so much of on the internet. It's like like, the long and short of it is basically your fertility doesn't really even begin to go down a little bit until after 40. which was such a relief because I think there's so many women who are like 29, 35 who are like, God, I have negative time left. And it's like, you really don't. Like, exactly. If you're not obese, if you take good care of yourself, if you get off, you know, get off drugs, get off packaged food, things that I think are common sense, but that are, everyone's different, everyone's raised differently. Exercise, like just not being obese. If you're someone who wants to get pregnant, the first thing you should do is like get in shape and like just don't be obese. Basically, from everything I'm reading, because it sets you up for easier to get pregnant, easier to keep the baby, and you're gonna have an easier birth. Like there's also God, like if you look back to our parents' generation, like we're gaining more weight in pregnancy than our parents and grandparents certainly were, which can lead to a slew of other problems. Like the bigger your baby is, the harder your birth's going to be, the more likely they're going to be like, fuck it, we'll just do a C-section. The more you are at risk for gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, like all this other stuff.
What is that? RGBV? I was like, not Roy G. Biv. It's not the rainbow colors. I'm talking about
there's another thing.
Bovine growth hormone.
Oh, that too.
In the milk
and
makes people big. What were you going to say?
There's another complication that they actually have really fixed with modern medicine. I think it's like an RH, like there are some instances where the mom has a negative blood type and the baby has a positive blood type, but they just like, there's something very simple they can do where normally that could end in like death for one or both of you. So it is
heard
cool
of
to
that.
see. Yeah.
Where the mom and the baby, it's like there's one blood type that can't handle a specific blood type from another, but that's only if you have the one blood type and the baby has a blood type. And then what do they need to introduce medicine to like
I think so. I think
counteract it?
it's just a shot or something, which I'm like, so like, no, I'm very no shot. Every time I go to a obgyn visit, they're like, hey, you want to get your flu shot? I'm like, nope. Next question.
Are you like fully holistic, or maybe not fully, but like, are you primarily holistic now?
You see the videos of people giving birth in their bathtubs or in the kitchen and they just sort of catch it themselves. I don't think I could do that. I don't want to ruin an Uber or someone's bathtub. But like there is part of me right now who knows what'll change, that wants to be a hero and do lowest drugs possible, no epidural, and just like see if I can pop them out quick. But like again, like who knows?
The water birth I love, because I'm thinking from the baby's perspective, they come out of this warm, quiet, dark place into the bright, wide, super
Neon,
cold environment.
fluorescent hospital lights. Ugh, unflattering.
Immediately screaming in horror. And then you see videos are like babies born in water and they come out peaceful and calm.
Ooh. I've seen that. I've seen videos of that.
They're still warm. They're gently kind of exposed to the light through the water. They can still breathe. They can still survive under the water because they're still connected with the umbilical cord.
Right, and the placenta needs to come out last because that's what they breathe through. I'm just imagining like it's a parachute, like they just pull out at the end.
Yeah, they pull the ripcord.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think water birth is like my favorite. If I had to say like a weird, I mean, I don't even know if it's weird, but like if I had to do like a holistic thing
It's
about.
cool looking. I like the idea of it. I think I'm afraid like I wouldn't be able to pull it off, or like the people around me would be like, "Nah, don't do that. Just be easy and go to the hospital."
Yeah,
So
what you need like a what are they called? Like a house marm? No, what the hell do they call those women that come by?
doula or a midwife?
Yeah, a midwife. What's the difference?
I don't know. That's a good question.
But she comes by and she's like, "It's okay. Things are gonna be just
As
fine."
someone to just pet you and tell you to breathe.
Speaking of your husband, you guys got married like what, a year ago, I guess?
June.
Just in June?
Yeah.
But were you together for like 13 years before?
9. We've been together 9 years.
So before you were famous, basically?
I don't even think I'm famous yet, but
Famous-ish? Yeah, before you even began to become known like publicly?
we met in 2014. It was like I didn't even start my podcast till 2020. I didn't even really start working hard at stand-up till maybe like 2018. So yeah, He definitely met me during my more so like floundering years.
I find value in that personally because they don't have an idea of who they think you are. When you meet somebody that just meets you as a random Joe, like messed up, and they see the dirtiness and they're like, oh, I still like this person a lot. But how do you, like, with
Yeah.
kids in the dating scene these days, how do you relate and like inspire young women that are dating in this environment?
It depends, like, yeah, who you are and who you're looking for. Like, I'll say to everybody, like, get off birth control. Just learn about your cycle and track it. Like, don't like do something that's going to effectively uh change your personality even slightly. Like, there's enough hard stuff to deal with nowadays anyway. I would say you gotta cast off this whole like trad wife thing because it's just the percentage of women that is available to, I think is so small. I think the average people are kind of still going to college, graduating, trying to get a job, trying to pay off their debt. But it's tricky because when I was in my 20s, like, I really wasn't thinking about getting married and having kids. I was like, I gotta find and keep a job. I gotta make rent. And then I started stand up at 26. So then my focus was like, I gotta be getting up a few times a night, several times a week. Like, I would do whatever day job. I would leave my day job at like 5, 6, 7 o'clock and then go straight to open mics and then get home, commute home to my parents' house, like anywhere from 10, 11, 12, 1, 2 in the morning, and that was every night for years. So and then my mom would, like, definitely poke fun at me, like, because I did improv for 5 years before doing stand-up, and she'd be like, "You're wasting your best years with these people." Like, she'd come to an improv show, and she'd see my improv team, and it's a lot of misfit toy types, a lot of just, like, socially awkward and then theater kids, and then people that are dying to be on SNL, like, none of which are people my mom saw me with. She'd be like, "Ugh, what are you doing with these people?" And I'd be like, we're doing Pass the Clap, Mom, you'll never understand." So it
Pass the
wasn't. Yeah.
pass the clap, like zip zaps up,
Zip,
where
zap,
you're like,
stop.
yeah, all that.
I have to be doing this. And I don't know, I would be getting pressure from my mom, like, "You better get married and have kids, you better have kids." But, like, I think if you wanna give somebody advice, you gotta back it up and, like, meet somebody where they are, be like, "Are you trying to meet somebody right now? What kind of person are you trying to meet? Where do you think you see yourself?" And sometimes just I couldn't see myself 10 years in the future. I just was thinking about getting really good at stand-up. So, it just depends where you're at. Like, you gotta filter through, like, the propaganda, the cultural influences, and if you can really try to figure out, like, find your own, don't let your own voice and your own wants and desires get lost in what your parents want for you, what society wants for you, what the World Economic Forum wants you to do, and then if you can find that, like, nugget of truth in yourself and be like, "Okay, I really wanna meet this kind of guy." It's like, okay, if a girl really wants to meet a guy, if they want that classic, like, I need to meet a guy in the 666 club, I'd be like, okay, whatever job you have, go to a steakhouse during happy hour and talk to those dudes, because they have jobs and that's better than just going out to a bar at night and just you getting so drunk that whoever's brave enough to approach you is who you're going to end up with. And I would say very like, do all of it, do apps, but also talk to people in line at stores, also do activities, like do a drink and draw class, go to comedy clubs, and talk to people, like go to sporting events. Like if you're a sporty chick, you should be going to a lot of games and like chatting up other fans.
Did,
The
did
default should never just be the bar scene.
did you guys meet through comedy?
Yes, yeah, we did. He, was producing shows up in Westchester, and he had a comedy partner who actually, like, scoped me out first and booked me for a show, and then, like, the first show I was at, we kind of were just like ships passing, like, I didn't really notice him, and then we both attended, like, a friend's roast, and I was still with my ex, so I was, like, so afraid of him seeing me because he was very controlling. I was so afraid of him seeing me talking to another guy, especially, like, a guy that I liked and felt good around. Um, so it was, like, after we broke up, it was, like I broke up with my my ex at the time, like in June, and then met Frank again like that following November. He came to the show that I was producing at the Stonewall in New York City, which is a gay landmark. I think it's a New York and national landmark. It's where they had the Stonewall riots in 1969. And I produced a monthly show there for 6 years, which is like an eternity in comedy producing years. It was
What was
so
the
fun.
monthly show?
It was called Comedy at Stonewall. I hosted it. I was booking like up and coming, and this is before the insane like trans craze, right? Like the whole social indoctrination aspect of it. It's just when like I would have fun, an occasional drag queen on. I would have like up and coming LGBT talent, and I would also scout veteran comics from the Comedy Cellar because that was a quick walk away. So it was a really good blend of like up and coming, but also like, wow, someone who would be considered like a good get to see. And it helped me build my hosting chops. And I kind of took everything I knew from improv and helped me like think on my feet and, you work on your crowd work. And it was fun because it was we would have some regulars, but it was mostly tourists because there was a lot of foot traffic. It was in Greenwich Village on Christopher Street. So it was a Saturday night show
Oh, that's
every
hot.
month, and it would fill up and basically sell out every month, and then it got to be difficult because the owner would, like, and it was never a comedy venue, I just asked for a Saturday, and then next month, it took many, many months for me to even get the first Saturday of the month, like, I had to just scrape every month and be like, "Can I have another date? Can I have another date?" And then finally, it was a monthly show. But then suddenly the owner would be like, "Oh, we have a really urgent Madonna sing-along. Can we just move you to Wednesday?" And you have to be like, "Okay, sure," because it's not a comedy club, like, they're a gay landmark. It's like comedy is not their priority, so I had to be like, "Okay." So there were many times I had to move the show last minute, and, like, I was very patient with that, and just tried to be flexible. And then he would kind of see, "Wow, she's selling out on Saturday. Let me try and move her to, like, uh, a less good day, like Wednesday or Tuesday," and he figured I could just sell out that day too.
Would you?
Sometimes, yes, and sometimes he would give me such short notice. I'm like, "This isn't how comedy works, like, not all the same people are gonna be available on Wednesday as would be available, Saturday." And then eventually I left that show because I got a weekly show at Compound Media, which led into my whole kind of like political awakening and paradigm shift of where I was sort of socially in the comedy community because I went from like monthly show at a gay bar, pretty like default liberal, default Democrat, to getting a show at Compound Media, the free speech network. And if anyone who knows anything about Anthony Cumia, they're like, "Oh, everyone's super alt-right, right wing." Gavin McInnes had a show on Compound, and people go, "Oh, he's the Proud Boys." All the like the sort of negative connotations that comes with anybody associated on the right. So I noticed within a couple of months, I went from like kind of more popular, a lot of people asking for spots, feeling like things were going well, to like, "Oh, you're a right winger. You're on Compound Media." People starting to like not answer my text back. And then it was Trump, and then I came around to liking Trump in, like, 2018, and then I was at January 6th, so there were, like, these several events over between basically 2018 and 2021 that was, like, chipping away at my kind of old self.
Yeah. Was it Wet Spot? Was that the show at
Yeah,
Compound?
yeah, I pitched that to them in the summer of 2019. Yeah, because my mom died August of 2018, and then I was like, "I gotta throw myself into more stuff. I have to just, like, work harder. I have to, like, fill this void with something positive," and then pitched that show the summer of 19 because I was like, "There's nothing really entirely female run here," and I wanted something like old school Howard Stern with sometimes, like, I don't know, not necessarily pranks, but like funny in studio segments and comedians and porn stars. And I wanted to just be like a fun and light show because there was a lot of just shows on Compound that just cover news. And and just mostly politics. So I was like, oh, let's try something light. And I've been there ever since. Yeah. June of 2019.
Did you just walk in to the headquarters and be like, here's my
No,
pitch?
I it took a while to even get to a place where I could the confidence to pitch something, but I started doing like guest spots on this other compound media show called In Hot Water, which is still running now, and run by Gino Bisconti. And at the time, this other comedian, it was Aaron Berg and Gino Bisconti, and they are also comics in New York City. And like, I owe so much to them because they really gave me my first shot of like, oh yeah, sure, come in. I'd be like, I really want to come in and do like a Greta Thunberg impression. They'd be like, yeah, sure, fine, just fucking let it rip. They weren't like, let's see a script first. What are you gonna say? Whereas like if you're trying to get a spot on late night TV, God, your set is so thoroughly combed through and edited, and it takes so many times. There's so many different hands on it, and there's so many edits. Like by the time it's actually playing on a late night spot, like it's been really toyed with quite a bit. Whereas like on Compound, they're like, yeah, you just come do it. Just let it rip. Like we trust you. Have fun.
Have you done those late night shows like
No.
Tonight Show or any of that?
No, I was once kind of in the running for Colbert. The booker was kind of looking at me and we were like, I felt like I was being courted for Colbert. But and Dave Landau has a story about this too, where he too was sort of being courted by them, but it just took forever and ever and ever. And I think he ultimately was just like, fuck it, and bailed out of it. So
Do you have any interest or like ambition to do those shows like that?
no, I don't think they would have me, to be honest. Like, and I also don't feel like I would. There's no way Colbert would be interested in having me on. But even if he was, I couldn't do it because I'm like, this is the same guy who was like really promoting the jab and having people dressed in vaccine costumes. And I just don't see late night comedy as comedy anymore. I feel like it's more just a wing of the political establishment.
It's so freakish, but I think there's something to that. I left LA for a similar, I just didn't feel right saying things I didn't believe. Like I'd get an Arby's audition and they'd be like, say, it doesn't matter. I don't care what's in it. It tastes good. That's all that matters. Like that was my line.
Like, I don't feel that way.
Yeah, I'm like, I in fact feel the opposite even. It's hard to say this out loud for money. And I was just thinking like if they offered me a lead in like Fast and Furious 19 and they're like, we want you to be the lead, but we want you to get vaccinated with COVID. I'd be like, no, I'm not doing it. I wouldn't take that role. Even though we're going to pay $20 million. I would say, no, I'm not doing that to myself right now. Thank you.
How much is myocarditis worth to you,
yeah,
Ian?
I'm not putting some, but like if they didn't have any weird things like that, I would consider the offer from Hollywood. I'm not pursuing it. I have no ambition to do it, but I think if I was offered a big role in that, like if Colbert came to you and was like, do you want to come on and do a
I would feel like the biggest fucking hypocrite. I don't think I could do it. It would go against like everything I've talked about and promoted and valued the last few years.
What about Kimmel?
No.
Jamie.
God, maybe could I do? I mean, Fallon is the best of them, but that's not saying much right now.
Seth Meyers, I don't know much about him.
He came from an improv background. I think most of these guys came up in the old model of comedy, which is like you go to a Groundlings or a UCB theater or an improv Olympic, like in Chicago. You come from like an improv school, which I did do. I did like UCB theater, and you get on a team, you get plucked up for like an SNL, or you get into commercials. And you kind of like, it was easier to work your way through and be recognized just for your talent and your potential. It's not like now where it's like, okay, that's nice. You have to be funny, but also you have to have a huge following and you have to be able to fill the room and you have to promote yourself. And then some people kind of fit the mainstream narrative a bit better. And then they'll luck out with a good management team or an agent that helps propel them even higher and gets them on these bigger tours. But then people like me, like I'm not attractive to those agents or managers. So any show I do, I have to basically promote it myself and bring my own audience, especially if it's like on a Sunday or, you know, if you do a show at a club that's like Friday and Saturday, you do have the benefit of those club regular audience members showing up. They might just be like, yeah, let's see who's playing at Governor's tonight. But if it's an off night, like that's all your people.
I was just thinking with the entertainment industry in general, like I wonder if part of this like brain drain is because casting directors will go for people with large followings instead of the best talent. And it used to be like if someone was famous, they'd have an in, they'd go in, they'd be like, you're one of our top 3 considerations because we know your work. But usually they were already good. Like famous people were good in the 80s. You didn't have like
Yeah.
crappy actors get famous back then. And now I noticed in like 2011, I started to notice it with commercials that they'd be like looking at your social media following. It was very weird.
It's you can't blame them. Part of me thinks, oh, that's just lazy. You're looking for who's going to just have the bigger draw and sell more product or sell more tickets. But it's like, it makes sense. I see why they do it. It's somebody with you got built in thousands more eyeballs on you than just, okay, going by someone with talent that might take longer to sell your thing. But then you look at what they did. They brought on this girl who was a big YouTuber. I can't remember her name, but they tested her out. They gave her a late night show and it just absolutely bombed because she didn't have those transferable skills. Like she hadn't been grinding it out in the stand-up scene for a decade. Like she went from TikTok to a late night show.
Yeah, there's
Late night with Lily Singh. That's who it was.
Lily, I don't know her. There's like a kind of humility that's built on stage, like doing a joke that doesn't land, and then like 60 or 40 people are looking at you, and you can tell they're looking at you. And it's like, well, that's all
And you
because of
don't
my
get
mistake.
that online. You don't feel the in real time rejection of a bomb through a TikTok not doing well, through a video not doing well. Yeah, you'll read nasty comments and that sucks. That takes it out of you too. But like you just don't feel the immediate response of a live crowd on your material.
Because you think you're gonna cry, but you don't. Maybe it's the adrenaline, and it's like similar in combat. They're like when the horror is happening, you don't until later, you process it later, like PTSD. And it's some I mean, it's much less than I would imagine on stage work. You know, everyone's trauma is personal to them, but like you will process it later and be like, God, I've really fucked that up. It was my but you know why, and you
get
have no
over it. You develop a tolerance for it. And most people who pursue stand-up, they do better. They have more positive experiences than they do negative, because if they don't, they're not gonna keep going with it. They're gonna, all right, well, these jokes got laughs. Like I bombed this half of it, or I bombed these jokes, but I I had things that did well, or I had a lot of fun, or I have a lot of, friends. The experience of this is fun. Maybe you have a lot of friends coming up in that scene with you. You're not going to keep pursuing stand up if you have more negative than positive experiences. And you just have enough. If you have enough positive experiences that keep you going, and then you get enough accomplishments, you get enough, oh, wow, I got on this show. Oh, wow, I got this, I got that. Then that'll take you through hanging in there for like 10 years.
Doing theater. I did a lot of acting theater, and then I did some stand up in New York at the New York Comedy Club. But like the acting, like when you're doing a monologue and they laugh, and then you like turn and you look at the other guy and you point at him and you say something, and then they all laugh again. You're like, I got that. It's just so compared to them not it's such a confidence build compared to like the some deflation from like a joke that doesn't land, or like, that's my experience. The good stuff heavily outweighs the bad stuff.
I never feel entirely confident. I feel like the sets that do really well, I'm really proud of myself, because I go, wow, I was really in the present moment and I was listening so hard that I was able to catch these little nuggets from the crowd and then build on that. Like for me, a perfect set is my material that I've been doing for like anywhere from 6 months to 10 years. But a lot of it I've actually like, you do an album, you try to not do that material anymore, and you try to like write fresh stuff. So the material I'm currently doing now is probably like 2 or 3 years old, mixed with stuff I'm just saying about whatever town I'm in, weaved in perfectly with crowd work. Like the best set for me is like you get a nugget from the crowd. Oh, that nugget has to do with dating. Now I'm going to go into dating material. Oh, this couple's been together a really long time. I have a perfect joke about being together a really long time. And you're going back and forth, and it's like it feels fresh and fun to you, and it feels fresh and fun to the audience. And it's like when you're listening really hard and you're willing to risk bombing, like you're willing to go into crowd work, like you're like, I may not what do you do for a living? I'm an architect. You're like, fuck, I don't have anything about I have no jokes about architects. But sometimes your funniest lines can just come from like saying a true thing in the moment, especially in like this post-COVID, post-lockdown time. We're so inundated with propaganda on our radios, in our TVs, in our phones, that just going to a room and being hearing somebody on stage saying true things can get a huge laugh. Like I have this joke from my January 6th album where I'm like, you got to cut people credit, like cut them some slack. People that were at January 6th, like they were only there because uh well, I don't want to say this and mess up your algorithm, but they were only there
Okay.
because they thought the election was borrowed, you know, they're only there. And the only reason why they thought that is because of all the obvious and overwhelming evidence, you know, like it's not really a like hilarious, but it's just me, what I'm saying that I feel like is true. And you have these moments on stage where you're just saying a true thing and it gets a huge laugh.
When you were talking about the architect and you were like, oh fuck, I don't have any funny jokes about architects. Like that is funny. Even if you said that out loud, like the truth.
Right. And sometimes that's all you can come up with because you say whatever you're thinking. Like you don't have time. So people are just listening to you like word vomit a lot of times. You just hope that it works out. But after a really good set, I never feel like I'll be excited. I'll be like, there'll be a lot of adrenaline. I'll be so happy. It'll feel like a huge weight is lifted off my shoulders. Because I'm a completely different person before a show versus after. Before a show, I feel like anyone who talks to me that's not my opener or the host or someone at the club, anyone who talks to me in that 2-hour window before I show, I equate them to a vampire, like an energy soul vampire. And I know people are just excited. They want to say hi, but that's why I have to go and hide before a show because it's like, and people aren't thinking, they're not like in your head with you. They just be, oh my God, hi. Like I follow you on this and that. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, don't talk to me, you know? I just have to go hide because like you're reading, you're absorbing, you're like, what's going on in the news right now? What's going on in Tampa? What's going on in this area? What kind of people am I about to go talk to? Where is everyone leaning politically? Did any crazy news happen in the area recently? And you just have to like you do feel like you're cramming for an exam. At least that's how I do it.
Yeah. Oh, it's
So
kind of like setting up one of those rubric machines where it's like the ball drops down and hits the card that falls
oh,
over
the
and rolls
Rube
over.
Goldberg, like
Yeah, the Rube.
mousetrap.
Yeah. And if some dude comes up and he's like, "Ooh, that's a neat part of the machine. What's this piece do?" You're like, "Don't touch a
Don't
thing. Like
touch
that's my
it.
don't touch
Yeah.
my mind." Yeah.
Oh, you look pregnant. Oh, you look fat. Oh, like I'm like, like so.
I'll remember. If I
Oh my
see
God.
you, I might say Chrissie Mayr and then like do like a shoulder hug. But even that, I don't want to like give you my energy for stage unless you want it. But like I'm kind of the same as you. Like before a show, I isolate, and then if I'm really nervous, I'll take a big shit or I'll just like fart a lot. So I'll like
Ooh.
do not eat, 4 hours before a show. If it's like a really big show, especially like if it's music, because then I got to crunch my abs a lot to make those
Really?
notes, and then it's a lot of like farting and.
Yeah,
But for
sometimes
theater, I
I'll
know that.
sometimes like the process is so similar between like music and comedy too. Like if I'm on the road, it's typically with like my 2 openers, Keanu Thompson and or Lila Hart. We have a whole thing. We thank God they're very similar in that we like to get to the venue really fucking early. Like an hour is the absolute least amount of time I could get to a venue before a show starts. Like that to me is cutting it close. But there's a whole like I need to have mentally like 4 hours before a show, like whether it's like showering, getting ready. Okay, my opener has to shower and get ready, doing some sort of stretching or like whatever, something physical in the room, or you're at the hotel gym, you're listening to sets, you're rewriting stuff, and then you're going. I always have a moment where I'd be like, have I forgotten all my jokes? Am I a fraud? Is this my last show? Like that always crosses my mind because I'm constantly comparing myself to comedians who have the help of management, who have a packed tour where they're in a different city every weekend. And I have these moments where I feel very jealous of those people. And I go, oh, if only I were more mainstream. If only I didn't talk about the vaccine so much, I would be in every city. Uh, And then I have moments where I'm like, well, maybe it's not because you talk about the vaccine, Chrissy. Maybe you're just not that funny. I go back and forth between like, oh, what? Why am I where I'm at? And then you go, it's all, I ultimately end up at a place. It's all good. I feel like I'm doing the right thing. I feel like I don't know, the message that I'm trying to put out to people is good. I feel like if I can make people laugh and come together in a room and drop little, not even truth bombs, not even like I know everything about anything, but say little things that might make someone might chew on and take home and think differently about, maybe like go Google, and then that feels good to me. And just like be like, oh, you can just say what's on your mind. You can say what you feel like are true things. You can make observations without being called a racist.
Yeah, that's, I think it's like a slower build. I used to want to like seize the chalice. I wanted to get up, be given the opportunity to be put in front of everyone and like, hey, look, this is the guy. And then I'd be like, now I can tell you the truth. But I figured out just telling the truth and slowly building. I
Yeah.
feel better as a human since I started doing that path.
Yeah.
I
Like, I feel
wonder.
like if I learn something, I'm very excited to let people know. Like these books I've been reading that turn the fertility age up on its head from everything I've been hearing. I'm like, oh, I feel like people should know this. There's a lot of stressed out women out there thinking that there's a lot of stressed out women who keep getting sent pictures of empty egg cartons and are freaking out. They need to know
What is the
they have more time than they think.
what is the book called?
Expecting Better by I think Emily Oster.
That's so important. It is so important right now for women in their 30s to know they can have babies up like
For
until they're in
sure.
their 40s and maybe even
Yeah.
beyond. Like healthy kids too. It's so important, man. I really hope that becomes more like just accepted that solar age and genetic age are not the same thing.
Mhm.
These stupid numbers and people upset. I want to bring up a couple super chats. People were super chatting. Oh, this is from earlier. Push-ups 2345. So my grandfather was in the U.S. Army and met my grandmother in Belgium when she stopped him from walking into a
Ooh,
minefield after he liberated her Sidious. Oh, U.S. I
our
think that
city.
Sitius. That's badass.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's similar, like you were saying with Frank, how like you decided to do. I mean, it's not really even remotely similar to this army vet meeting as woman, but similar how like
There's bombing involved in both.
yeah, yeah, Germany never had it so good. You that you pursued your career and then you met your man through the pursuit. And because you knew like the kind of guy, you kind of had an idea of the kind of guy you want, rather than be like, I can't get into my career. I don't know. Maybe women need to, and men too, need to understand that it is okay to like go pursue your passions, and you might meet.
Yeah, what's the option? I just feel like the messaging that this whole trad wife messaging that we see so much of online. It's like, what is the average person gonna do? Like, you're gonna be 21 years old, graduate college, or not go to college, or do trade school, and then you're just gonna like most you need to move out of your parents' house. You need to learn. You need to develop those adult skills. That doesn't mean you're not trad or you're gonna be a spinster. You're gonna get 10 cats. Like, everyone should be learning how to manage their money, pay their bills, pay their rent, or save up for a house. Like, have a forward momentum. Not everyone has the luxury of just sitting around waiting for a guy who makes six figures to swoop them up their feet and be like, don't worry, don't get a job.
Like,
Just lay there and spread them.
yeah, tradition isn't always the same. There are some traditions that have been around, as far as we know, for a long, long, long time. Like maybe you could say the woman stays home and cooks while the guy goes out and finds the meat to bring back for the woman to cook because she's there with the kids. And that way, if something happens to the guy, she can get another guy. But the mom, maybe you could say that's a kind of tradition. Like, but like, I think that traditions change. So what we could call a trad in 150 years could be like, well, obviously you're on the internet using the internet. That's the tradition, is the internet. Like it
Right.
could be another tradition that we think of as like old tradition. It's been around for 200 years. Santa Claus, like
That's
that's
true.
tradition, but it's 150 years.
OnlyFans.
Yeah, only fan, in the same vein
Ye
as
old
wonderful Christmas.
OnlyFans.
Oh, this is nice from Coach Chisel 4000. Ian, you are a legend, man.
Ooh.
Peace. I agree. Thanks, Coach Chisel 4000. That was nice. Oh, there's a Fat Zach. Oh, it's a funny name. Chrissie, Ian, tell Chrissie she's breathing way too loud. Chrissie. This guy thinks you're breathing way too loud.
Okay, so I had this, realization at my Tampa show. I was, like, a couple jokes in, and I'm like, "Why am I out of breath? I'm doing stand-up for 10, 12 years. Why am I suddenly so out of breath?" And the more I'm looking into it, that's a side effect of being pregnant is, like, your shortness of breath because I guess it's
You're
cramping up your lungs, and then my opener, Kiana, was like, "Yeah," because 'cause we're doing a wrap-up live stream after the show. She's like, "Yeah, I actually can hear you breathing, like, I can hear you breathing when you're in the bathroom." I laughed so hard. She's like, "You sound like a rhino," and I was laughing so hard, but maybe, like, 30% embarrassed, but it was the best because it just was this thing that came out on a live stream, and, it's just a funny thing to be, like, self-conscious of your breathing.
are you I suppose you're breathing for two.
I get right, that's true because there's a lot more blood flow going on. You're not necessarily that's a myth. You're not eating for 2. You're only supposed to be having, like, 300 more calories a day, only in your, I think, 2nd and 3rd trimester even.
And then it just stays at
So
300.
I think so. I think you're not supposed to be, like, eating double of everything.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, I hear fasting helps reduce
ooh,
loose after the pregnancy. If you gain weight in pregnancy, if you want to reduce the weight without having like loose skin, it's intermittent fasting that'll do it.
fasting is so good for anybody. Yeah.
You digest that loose skin for all those people out there that
That's what
are
I'll be doing is digesting my loose skin. I
that's what I'm
also met a
talking.
woman in a clothing store who was like, "You gotta wear a lot of Spanx all the time because after you have that baby," she was the sassy black woman. She's like, "You gotta have a lot of air in there. You gotta push that air out." I was like, "Oh god," I'm just picturing like queefing noises. Like,
Oh, it's awesome.
ah,
That's gonna be so rewarding.
oh no.
Here's Fuad Torres says the human brain scares me for how easy it is to manipulate, but then I realized we're all to be over our own indoctrination. That's a funny way to phrase it. But then I realized we are to be over our own indoctrination. What?
What?
Uh
I
wait.
almost understand what you're saying.
Yeah, me too. It was like a dream, how like words don't it's hard to read in a dream, how like letters look weird in a dream. That was kind of like reading the last third of your statement, Fuad. Uh how easy it is to manipulate, but then I realized, well, riffing off of that, I guess, yeah, man, people are easy to manipulate in general. I am too, now that I think about it, being one of them. It is
I
a
think
little
what
dis
he's saying is that we are all victims of our own sort of confirmation bias, like,
Oh,
wherever we're
yeah.
at, we're gonna look for more proof of that.
Like, when I tell myself I'm good at what I do, that I'm indoctrinating and manipulating my body to
Same.
think it.
Do you
Yeah.
feel, Ian, since you've become more famous, more busy with the podcasting stuff, you have less time for music and your other creative parts of yourself?
Yeah, I got my guitar right here, but uh, it it kinda synergizes, but yeah, I would like to kind of unleash the creativity and start just pumping out scripts and songs and shows. It's like without oversaturating, and it's got to be high quality. Those are two really important things. I used to oversaturate shitty quality on YouTube. Just be like, get it out, get it out, get it out. But a lot of that stuff was forgettable.
Hmm.
So it's like, I don't know. A lot of it's marijuana for me is like a killer, a motivation killer. It is not good. Some people, maybe if I worked out a lot, I could do it in the morning before a workout. But even those days, I'm like,
I've never been a fan of it. I just am like, why would I make a practice of doing something that's going to ultimately make me less productive? That's why it's like
yeah.
I don't have time or a desire or even a curiosity about hard drugs anymore. I don't have time or for ma like, for, like, weed. It's like, I have shit to do. I'm always behind. Why would I do something that's gonna intentionally set me back another day,
Did you
another
used
half a
to?
day? Yeah, I dabbled, nothing too hard, like, a couple of times I don't wanna mess up your channel, but, like, a couple of times on the stuff that grows out of the ground. Couple of times on the stuff you take when you go to a club to
Wait,
feel
opium,
to
MDMA?
no, a couple of times mushrooms, couple of times
Oh,
Molly.
mushrooms. Yeah, mushrooms are
Um, not
Molly, MDMA.
yeah, nothing
That's like
harder
the
than that, but I just was like, it's like mushrooms. It's like, okay, there's a whole day that you've wasted. Okay, you don't know what's gonna fucking happen. It's gonna be good. You're gonna be bad. You're not gonna get anything done. I just don't have time for that.
Yeah, man. This hard life of like getting things built and acquiring resources is so important. It's not, I don't want to get lost in it. It's important not to get lost in it and to remember the fractal nature of reality, of course, that we're like connected beings in the
Yeah.
etherverse, whatever. But at the same time, like put some food on the table for people, like raise a
Yeah.
kid.
And you owe it to yourself to not just check out when it feels hard or stressful. Like I feel like I'm dealing with now like uh the balance between like the creativeness, the good part of podcasting versus the business of podcasting and the business of comedy versus the creative stand-up part of it. I feel like I get bogged down with the very necessary business aspect of both those things. And I go, God, I wish I had time to just get back into oil painting or like sketch meaninglessly for hours or just like read all these books that that I'm curious about. It's like, well, I don't have time. I don't have time to read The Ascension Mysteries by David Wilcock. Okay. I have to put up a podcast. Like,
Yep.
so you go, ah,
The
but like,
business stuff, it
yeah,
is so time consuming. I was going to call it annoying, but you know, it's what if you want it to be. It's also super lucrative if you're good at it. Like making money is pretty cool because you can give it away and use it.
it's the doing homework part of your adult life, which is necessary and you can't entirely avoid unless you hit the very, very upper tier where you've
Yeah.
got a whole team of people.
Like a manager and an agent doing the business for you. But even then, you need like an accountant. And then if you're
Mhm.
not involved at all with your finances and you trust your accountant, it's basically their finances at that point. Like
Yeah, and then they can steal from you and you'll have no clue.
that's what Kanye was saying. He's like, I'm my own CFO. That's chief financial officer. He's like, if someone else is in control of your money, it's their money. And I was like, well, he's been through it.
Damn.
So anybody who knows it's Kanye. That's
Yeah.
true. We were talking about BlackRock last night on IRL, and like they are only worth $100 billion, but they control 20 million. Or no, they move around I'm sorry, 9 trillion. They're only worth
Ooh.
100 billion, but they move around 90 times that. So like, how much are they really worth? In my
That
opinion,
reminds me of Epstein, who he himself was not like the biggest mover and shaker, but because of his connections, just how much influence that created for him.
yeah, because it's not a number in a bank account that makes you rich. It's your access to resources, being able to move it around, like that makes you valuable to other humans. That's a bit of a tangent there. I don't know why I went on it. Let's go to the next. I'll remember when I rewatch the episode. Hey, Rockstar Podcast. Tune into Rockstar Podcast at Rockstar Falcor for recently dropped holiday cooking episodes and regular
Ooh,
spiritual content. That's quite a
I like
plug.
that.
Yeah, Falcor, like from Never Ending Story. Is that no, or is that with a C?
Oh,
I think it's spelled with a
okay.
C, like Falcon. Chrissy, it's been over an hour. This has been pretty fun,
Oh
man.
my God, it flew by.
It did. The first half hour was like a blink of an eye. Oh, we got another super chat just came in. It was like the blink of an eye, and then the last 30, actually the last 30
I feel
minutes
like it
happened
was
more
too
fast.
much about me.
That was great. I had to do very little. I actually wrote down some things to talk about: Santa Claus, abortion, just shit that we didn't ever have to get into. Like dark stuff. It's more fun just to
I
talk
was
about.
I was just looking at I was reviewing that Cosmopolitan article about satanic abortion clinics. I'm like, wow, they're just very out and open about this. And I think it's so funny how hypocritical they are. Like, oh, we're fighting against the religious right, but then everything about them screams religion as well. So just replacing one
Yeah,
for another.
I looked up before we started religion, what the definition of religion. I was actually looking it up, and they were like a set of institutionalized systems of religious attitude. And the definition of the word religion, that made no sense, but it's just like an obsessive or dutiful belief in something, kind of, you know. And sometimes it has to do with God or supernatural, but other times it's just like principle system of belief. So like,
Yeah. And they were saying, "Oh, we're not into child sacrifice, but here's something you can say while you're taking your abortion pill. Like, here's something you can do and look into a mirror and repeat after me." And I'm like, yeah,
oh,
yeah,
like a mantra to make you feel better.
yes,
Whoa, that's hardcore. Maybe that actually helps some people. I don't know, but then it goes out on the internet to everybody, and you're like, all these people that it wouldn't help, that weren't going to seek it out,
hmm
and it gets served in front of them. Are they being socially tweaked Oh, here's Rockstar Podcast again, coming in hard. Ian, you are an inspiration and a true leader of the human race.
Wow.
It's a deep
Almost
dude.
Christ-like.
Almost.
With that hair.
Bring that Christ back. It's within you. It's Christ Mass is upon us. Let's take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Chrissie Mayr, it's been wonderful talking to you as always, man. Really good.
Ian, you're the best.
I like the flames in your background. Are those real candles?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Looks
you gotta
good.
do real candles.
All right, everybody. Like the show, subscribe, follow me everywhere on the internet. Chrissie, follow, always great. You know where to find her. There's links in the bio. Chrissie Mayr Pod. I don't know what anything you want to label, but I mean all of it's there for anybody that wants to find you. Got anything going on coming up?
I'll be in San Diego headlining the Mic Drop Comedy Club January 5th and 6th, and I'll be headlining the Hyenas Club in Dallas January 25th. So yeah, if you guys are in those areas, get tickets at my website, chrissiemayr.com. And we didn't even bring up graphene.
I know. I feel dirty for it. I saw people in the chat were saying, talk about it, bring it up, make them say something. It's lightweight, 200 times stronger than steel by weight. That's the fact that I like to give over and over again.
Wow.
Yeah, dude. They figured out how to make bulk graphene pretty easily with this flash joule heating process where they'll put like carbon trash in a tube and then hit it with 7,000 degree electricity and turn it into black powder. But then that's like bulk graphene. It's not sheets. Making the sheets of it is good for building electronics, but they're having that's still a challenge making that in bulk. But just getting this rough graphene that can be put into stuff like concrete or rubber and things like that can strengthen and lighten building materials. Pretty
Who
cool.
is making graphene? Like, where is the graphene being made?
A lot of it's coming out of Rice University in Texas. Oh, is that actually in Dallas? It might be. Rice is down there somewhere.
Yeah, my brother almost went to Rice.
Nice. It's James Tour is the scientist that's pioneering kind of that division over at the school. A company's called Universal Matter that's come out of it with Dewey Long.
Oh.
He's the guy who kind of invented the process. That's a hot spot.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Chrissie.
Next episode will be all about graphene. I promise you guys. I'm going to read up on it. I'm going to be an expert.
From your words to God's ears. Thanks again, everyone. Have a nice day.
Bye.